It doesn't take long to run up a pretty big bill. Kind of like chicken and pickle. Yeah.
I want to go there.
It's fun, but it's like that. It will be. Yeah.
We've got another half hour to begin.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
IT department.
Also, I love these new laptops, but the not having a USB is throwing me off every single time. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, yeah, because it's got the C.
Yeah, you got to do the attachment. I'm sure it makes them like faster, but
So you're using a little Canada thing.
yeah.
I'll charge that.
Well, I can. Apparently, you can have cameras on that side. Okay, go for it. You just have to kind of see yourselves.
I think the main thing that we wanted to bring to the table was the supplemental proposal for y'all. Did you guys have anything for today, like salary or anything?
We were looking for what you were going to bring us on several different things.
Okay. So we can start with supplemental proposal if you'd like.
So, I've been working on this stuff since I was younger, trying to collect and compare to the surrounding districts. So the supplemental that we brought forth, you'll notice on the back, the red ones in red, those are the newest things that, those are really the only changes that are added on, and those are, mainly. What we did is so in my research, we couldn't find a rhyme or reason for the current supplemental of why things are put in certain places. So what we did is we divided it into two different, one is the top one that's like our KSD or KSHA sporting athletics is that top one, and then the bottom one's all like the clubs and the different groups that we have. We went ahead and we didn't do specifics on purpose so that it was easier to add things in and out without having to go through a whole lot of voting it in, voting it out. What is this? What is that? If you're a head coach, you're a head coach. Everyone kept telling me when I was doing the research, it's based on the season. When I was looking at it, they didn't, this is on the old one. The seasons didn't make sense. So it was really hard to tell what was what. So we went through and sat down and put things where we thought they should go instead of trying to divide everything up, just put it in one single category, as opposed to putting one sport ahead of another or one club ahead of another, just depending on what it was. So, questions you might have on this?
There were so many different percentages.
And they were, yeah, and we eliminated with this, we eliminated any of the half percentages, so you can understand why those were on there. We eliminated these weird like 1%, 2%, didn't make any sense. On some of them, we reworded that driver's ed at the bottom there. We just reworded it so it made more sense, because the way it was worded on the current one, just, you could have interpreted it several different ways.
We moved the driver's ed assistant with curriculum because of the educational requirements that are involved with driver's ed. They have to go through a whole student teaching process and take all these extra hours for driver's ed itself. And so we felt that was like a knowledge educational base as curriculum would be versus just a supplemental or an hourly wage that was on the supplemental scale with that one. And I've talked with Kyle Deerdeen quite a bit about the driver's ed and what that looks like. And the fact that that one particular thing hasn't changed in probably 20 years.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is when you put a dollar figure on the negotiated agreement, it's only one piece
Yes.
of that, and so it makes it a little tougher. That,
Yeah.
that's why percentages are always very helpful.
Yeah, and that's one reason we moved summer driver's ed assistant, because he works off of like an extended contract, but the other three guys that are driving work on a different kind of basis. So that's why we felt like it warranted at least the same classification as somebody who's working on curriculum.
You don't happen to have the current,
I don't have it printed.
Okay.
You can share that.
And when you kind of bucketing these in the different
Are you
levels.
talking about, this is the current one,
Yeah.
and this is loaded out.
Do you want me, I can print it off.
I mean, Stu, you looked at it, it's one you can't really,
It's pretty extensive, and what it.
Well, it'd just be helpful to compare.
yeah,
What
and
percentage was.
Brett has some, he
Brett
works
has
on,
copies.
Well, that's fine.
Happy to
These-
share.
I'm pretty familiar with you guys.
yeah,
So the only
Brett
question,
actually helped us he helped put together a spreadsheet to compare what we're offering versus the old one.
sure. Did you, knowing no one's losing money on this, did you have a cost associated with the changes in those percentages?
That's where the spreadsheet where we need your help filling in how many of each position that we would have. Because right now the spreadsheet assumes like one.
One per.
So we need to look at these positions and figure out which ones or how many of each one do we have.
because we know, like, it only says one, but we know we have a couple off-season
Right.
coaches.
Splitting and all
Some
season.
split one, but there's still like 2 or 3.
Yeah, none of it has a limit to the position, it's just defined as the position.
And I talked to Kara, especially some of the coaching things, just to kind of get a better grasp. So like the summer off-season, the head off-season, so that she could explain to me how it was working. And then like how the middle school, how they kind of break it up too. So I think she had told me there's like, what did she say? There's one full-time
one-
head.
One full-time head, and then the other head is like split between like 3 people or 4 people.
There's 2 other positions that are split 2 and 2. So I think there's 3 full-time or 3 summer head off seasons. At least 9th through 12th where they're splitting. And I know that 7th through 8th, the middle school changes. It also is a split.
We can do a study in-house to figure out, number one, spreadsheet of who's in those positions and then what we anticipate the cost being, because there'll be some shifts percentage-wise.
Yeah.
Based on the base rate or what it was.
Right.
That will kind of tell us to move to this, what that would cost. And this has been vetted with all of your other teachers and all that through the groups. They all see this.
Well, we haven't shared it with anybody. This is the first
Okay.
time overall that we've shared with anyone. We haven't gone out and shared it with anybody just
Sure.
yet.
It was really good to have the comparison with the other school districts around because, yes, they did do the percentages and they did do levels and then some had experience points and some didn't. And then a couple of the schools did have this, like all head coaches, just this category or us. And so it was helpful to have that comparison. I think, moving into this way, like a lot of the questions that staff had raised about where they fit in and what we were going to do with this review would be answered by having this system. It's not new, but
I don't know that the levels necessarily represent anything other than it just helped us identify
yeah.
each kind of progression as we moved.
My question was gonna be, just so on the Acacia items, there's 4 levels and the others are 9. Was there
That has to do with
Just
percentage.
kind of
The
picking the
percentage,
closest?
yeah, on that, from that sheet,
kind of the
and
closest
then
spot?
Yeah,
I'm gonna show this too.
Okay.
This is just all the districts on one. That's all it is. And we actually had the percentages, so we could compare the percentages of what we pay our coaches compared to what other schools pay their coaches. So all of them, we went through this as well to figure out where they would go on these different levels. And we have a lot that were, like you said, those weird half percentages and weird, like just in general, weird spots that they were in. So putting them on these, just separating these 2 levels, it was just easier than trying to either bump everybody up or bump a bunch of people down. And that's why there's these multi-levels at the bottom.
And no one's been bumped down.
No one's bumped down.
Some people.
there is
Well, there's
one,
one.
and I did that, because it
Middle
does affect
school-
me, FDLA.
Middle school FBLA got bumped down by
So, a
40%.
0.5% or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like 4.5 and then went down to 4. That's
I,
what it was. It was, yeah.
yeah, so the 7th through 8th head FBLA was at 4.5. And then we have not had a middle school FBLA for a couple of years now. And so,
We don't think anyone's gonna complain who's not.
Right.
and I just,
Who hasn't had it.
but I put it in comparison to maybe other middle school activities and, you know, the work that they were doing. And I just thought, if we were gonna change something, now would be the time, because when we're trying to level this out, across the board, that was the only one that we didn't keep the same or push up a 0.5%. The only one that I feel like was a significant increase was forensics and debate. And that honestly came from looking at Baldwin, Tongi, Lewisburg, and what they're currently paying their forensics and debate coaches at those schools, and the time that's put in for that particular, and when it's Acacia, it's an activity as well.
And the goal would be, if the district were to add another supplemental, it would go into this. You know,
Yeah.
We would, somebody, whether it be my predecessor or 10 years down the road, someone doesn't go, well, that looks like 6.5%.
Yeah,
Right, so that
The
you have
goal
a
would be-
You know,
unit.
the goal would just to be like, okay, you hit,
Where would you fall in here? Okay. That makes sense.
With K-12 club sponsor, that's all the new ones in red.
yes.
What is that?
So, honestly, at the middle school or at the elementary school, there's several like robotics clubs, and so these clubs are meeting after school hours at the end of the day. And we have some other clubs even, I know the middle school has clubs, I'm not sure what they all are, I know they have quite a few clubs. But at the high school, we have teachers that are supervising students at the outside of the school day to participate in clubs. Like, there's a Dungeons and Dragons club that's been meeting, like, I don't know how many months after
Magic
school, or, but then we have also Cardinal Core. That's a club. So anytime we felt like we had teachers working outside, that at least like 1% of giving that time to get some kind of compensation for their time.
If you wouldn't give us some time, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we want you
Get some
to,
of those
Yeah,
numbers.
Yeah, we
announce
didn't
this to
think.
members.
Okay.
It's a lot of lifting already, though.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Well, it was hard to find a place to start and figure out where we needed to go, or something that would be usable or workable, something that we could work together on that would make sense.
If you need to find the old one, it's on the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
negotiate that in the website.
yeah, so. But again, like I said, it's really weird. It's, how you saw it printed, that's how it shows up on the screen, and it's hard to like zoom in, move around. It's a very awkward document in general.
Other items that we are ready to talk about would be like the teacher representation language, or committee work.
Yes, so I had in my notes from last time, because couldn't find a definitive, they both kind of melded together under the committee process. So I had our director of HR and the person that's on the benefits advisory committee basically put to paper the processes for this group. My question to you, and I'm busy with the board members here on the team, I don't know how well this fits in the negotiated agreement, just, put in there. So obviously, if you want to take this back and look at it, I know I shared it with you via email, but I just think this is the expectations and this is how it works. I don't know that how we would codify that into the negotiated agreements. Maybe your representatives could figure out how you want to do that in there.
It
So that it
could
exists.
possibly just go to an appendix.
Okay.
Like you recognize it within the language as an add-on at the end,
Say,
as far as.
please
language.
see this.
Yeah. But yeah, we definitely, I've gone through some of it online, the email that you sent out, but we as a team haven't had an opportunity
Sure.
to go through it really too detailed yet.
Well, and it lays it out, following methods may be used to select committee members, selected by NEA representative, selected by a voluntary basis, or selected using electronic selection process. I don't know that they've ever got to the electronic selection process. Don't know if there's that many people that want to serve on that. Kind of lays out that committee. So, and then how the process of the defined benefits is selected. So I really appreciated that, the data collection.
Yeah.
So, but you and your team look at that and see how that might fit in there.
I thought the numbers were pretty encouraging from the health
Sounded like,
and benefits,
sounded like.
so. There was, when we switched to Aetna, it was a tough deal, but I've heard both ways. I've had people like, hey, once I figured it out, I've got it figured out, and I've been able to make the most and get some of my stuff lowered in cost, but then others are still like, some of my costs have gone up, so it's a balance.
We did find, which I thought was really good, because that was the concern of the group last year, of that the I-35 plan was, you had to live, and they extended that to any employee, which I thought was really good. Because there's some significant savings with that plan.
Yeah. Teacher representation, did you guys have anything? I think we went through that all with you.
Yeah, I can speak to it a little bit, that we do have a policy already that deals with discipline and reprimands. My concern is when you get to both evaluations, conference from parents, and the openness of informal investigations, the idea that there may be another adult in the room where you're giving student information about that student or personal information about that. Because when you go into an evaluation, you have an idea where you go, but you may be giving something personal, coaching to that person that they may not want shared towards the end of that with their other person, with the person they've asked to be in that room. So that would be my concern, is the idea that it may be requested that I have another adult in there as I'm talking to a parent and family about their student, because that may make the teacher feel safe. It may not make the family or that student feel as if it's just a closed door meeting. So that would be my biggest concern.
I would say that, like, my only concern would be the conferences with parents, but if a teacher is asking for representation because something on their evaluation, then they've probably shared that already with that person, or they wouldn't be asking them to go in. I feel like all the other situations would warrant, that's exactly why they're asking for someone to be in the room with them. But I understand protecting a student's privacy overall, but if we're talking about reprimands or evaluations or formal or informal investigations, then if somebody who falls under the agreement wants to have that support with them, then they've probably shared that already.
With the person.
With the person they're
Yes, they're
asking
asking
to
to
go
go
in
with
with
them.
them.
Sure.
I'm sure they
Like-
probably brought up in on why they're.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that would be a surprise to them.
I guess I read this too, as anytime there is a conversation or a meeting, and that could be an informal situation where we go into Heather's office real quick to talk about something. Is that, I mean, in that case, like, we need to pause this conversation, wait until a representative is here in the building, and then, I mean, could that be a scenario where they say, I don't want to have any communication with you until someone's here?
I would think if you were taking someone in, that you would give them the
No.
why, or why am I taking them in anyway? Like, not just calling someone in blindly. I would think that our administrators would say, I need to speak with you about this.
So like if a principal goes around and they're going in, they have plans to go in tomorrow, I'm gonna do a pop-in evaluation. There needs to be notice to the staff member of that evaluation. so
Not
that's
in the
something-
classroom, like,
Not in the classroom.
Yeah.
classroom evaluations are different.
Yeah. We're talking more about like afterwards, when
The discussion of the evaluation.
the full, yeah.
But we, like, if, in those scenarios, we've always, I know
Usually-
I've always gotten
honestly, usually when they do a
copy of
pop-in,
that ahead.
There's students in the room, so it's not as worrisome that something's gonna.
Or we get, usually there's a form that.
Yeah,
we
usually, yeah, we
receive
usually have to fill out a form
Feedback.
before, and then we get
Okay.
feedback, and then we're gonna talk about it, this date. Most of the administrators they don't have the spare time to pop in to go over evaluations like that. So usually most of it's pre-planned or preset, or let's do it on this day.
And I'm curious, is the representation there to tell the, I guess it's different than my day job, what I work in. Are they there to provide support? More just like I'm your friend that's here, or are they here to say you don't have to answer that? Or what is that representation? Is it an attorney? Could it be their friend? I mean,
It could be a peer,
Okay, here.
it could be, somebody who they feel like has ears for them.
I think about it a bit like how you know, if you're taking your parent to a doctor's visit and you're not sure that they're gonna take it all in, because maybe they're feeling like, you know, their focus is on this one thing and they can hear all these other things, and you have that family member or someone that you trust with you that's like, no, that was said, you know, here's the balance of the information, maybe, you know. That's how I see it, if I, correct me. if I'm wrong
No,
here,
I mean,
but-
it's mainly just for
That's-
supporting the employee or whoever it is comfortable supporting on. Totally just, you know, focus on that one negative thing, even though the whole, it's not even about that, or like she was saying, that one thing that they're worried about is more just support. Okay, let's move on. Okay, you made your point, like,
But not an active role, not
yeah,
like, not
They're
acting
not-
like an attorney saying,
yeah, they're not
you know,
gonna
stop
mediate.
bouncing that
Yeah,
jack,
they're
you're gonna
not-
get yourself in
They're not
trouble
a
under
mediator
that.
trying to,
No.
they're there just to help support and let them know that they have someone, just in case they.
So
What would it look like, just in case they need it?
Oh, just like she was saying, like, if she gets focused on that one thing through the meeting and keeps bringing it back up, it's good to have someone that they can move along. Or someone that can say, well, we are stuck on this point. I mean, they're there for that, for whatever reason that person wants it there. I mean, it's gonna change from employee to employer, or whatever. So it's just a support person.
So my concern, again, is in the wording of any meeting with administrators, because I feel like that turns any meeting with administrators and an employee into something that's adversarial. The other piece I have as well with this is if we already have a policy in our negotiating agreement dealing with discipline, this would then seem to preclude that piece right away. Like, okay, before, if in the nature of a formal investigation or an informal investigation, if it's deemed that there needs to be disciplinary action involved, that would be that time to have that ally or that, what was the term that was, representation of their choice. That feels like that would be the appropriate time to have that when you head into the disciplinary phase of that. But that's just my thought on that.
I think that was brought up too, because there may be a time when you'd like to have somebody with you, but permission, other than disciplinary situations, there's no permission given, so that's why this language was coming up. It's not so much that it wasn't to replace the disciplinary situations. There can be multiple conversations that are outside of disciplinary situations that just might be, again, someone's really stressed and they're overwhelmed and they want to meet and ask some questions about something, but they're just feeling like I hope I can take all of this in. Angie, will you come with me? Because I would really like to have another set of ears and make sure I'm hearing this right. I'm just really overwhelmed at this time. I feel like I'm not going to assess the situation correctly. And that might not be anything to do with discipline. Could be meeting with Kara about a coaching situation or a question, but there's nothing to say that you're allowed to have that person. So I see what you're saying, that we don't want to override the.
I think we're both working in good faith.
Yeah.
But when you put a policy that says any meeting,
Yeah.
someone's eventually going to say, well, this meeting's over until I have my representation.
Yeah.
And so that's the open door of any meeting with administrators. Because I understand both of those points, and I would hope that in good faith, all of our administrators would say, hey, this is going to be heavy. Would you like to have somebody come here, or say, I would like to have somebody, yeah, sure, come on in. But my concern would be any meeting is a pretty open policy.
So without the language in it as it stands currently, if I were to be in a meeting and I said, I don't feel comfortable, I really like it if I could invite Angie to come into this meeting, would she be allowed to come into the meeting?
I can't imagine any of our administrators not allowing that unless we're sitting here, then there'd be a discussion with a parent and a student. Maybe that's not the best time to have that person in.
Yeah.
We're talking about
Yeah.
the Smiths and their son,
Yeah.
John Smith, and let's invite another teacher in for this piece. I think that could be problematic, and I think.
That's where the any is, you're not saying the any is helpful.
What about evaluations that perhaps have been used as a form of discipline?
Like a disciplinary, like a progress to try and,
Well, no, I'm coming to evaluate you as a form of discipline. Using it as a discipline procedure.
so that an academic evaluation that is then part, well, there's gonna be, our evaluation's pretty extensive. I don't know where a discipline piece would fall in there, but there could be a plan of improvement, that, once again, they would have somebody there if they want to discuss those things. But as far as a targeted disciplinary plan, that would be falling under discipline, not academic evaluation, would be my thoughts. We did, and just thinking of a mandatory item here under insurance benefits for you to take to your members, the situation, and it calls for the shift to a monthly cost of the premium, low deductible PPO. There could be situations where, like this year, the low is at $385. How does that work if that premium goes below that? I know in previous discussions that no one ever thought that would happen, but right, currently our defined benefit says $450. What happens if the low goes below that?
Then you're paying for. So the low deductible PPO is $497.29.
Currently,
And that's what it's staying at.
but what happens if it doesn't? If it does drop to $385?
I don't think that is ever going to happen in insurance world right now. I have not seen where the low PPO at this point has gone below what we're currently paying. Now, that's the I-35 plan that you're saying is $398. The low PPO is $497.29.
And what's the difference between the PPO and the I-95 plan?
The I-35,
I-35 plan.
the I-35 is you have to use that preferred network along the 35 corridor.
But all employees can't use that network, right?
No, necessarily. Depends on your healthcare needs and some of your health situations. It's might not be in your best interest to be locked into somebody on the I-35. I didn't sign up for the I-35 because when Bukaty had originally proposed that, they said you had to live in the area last year. And I didn't live, I live in Leavenworth County. And so it didn't fall into the county that was covered under that. So my concern would be what happens if we get locked into some I-35 plan and all of a sudden we aren't covered because we don't live in the right place. I mean, something shifts on that, where the PPO plan, so if you're seeing specialized doctors for certain medical conditions, allows you to continue to shop within the network, a wider area versus like 5 doctors or 3 doctors that fall Johnson County. I don't know, I'm trying to get a colonoscopy and right now it's over 5 months out. I did everything I could to get it in the summertime and I can't even get in and it's now in September where I'm going to have to take 2 days off of work. It's crazy. And I started this in the spring, like this was like March. Like you would think that would be enough time to get a routine exam.
Probably not a fun 2 days as well.
I know.
Not like a vacation.
You know, I would hate to I'm not willing to base anything on an I-35 plan that doesn't is so constricting. That's not in the best interest of, I can't imagine in anybody, whether it's somebody who's voting on this contract or an administrator who's on the plan, being locked into an I-35 plan. So, I mean, we're looking at the PPO, the low deductible PPO plan as the one option.
Can I ask
I feel-
a question? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like we got into this last year when we tried to say change the language so that you covered a single, and you guys, well, you guys were set on, you can't say that because it's not a set amount. And so now you're saying we have a set amount, but if it's below that, what do we do?
I think our,
I'm just saying, it kind of feels like it's that balance game of back and forth between set amounts and
I think
like
language, what he was bringing up was just highlighting that it may work in favor, it may not, just depending on the situation. I think from our stance, and I know this has been 10 or 12 years running, and even previously when I was on the special ed co-op board, it was an item we talked about each year. For us, it's making sure we can budget our expenses from year to year and not have any big.
yeah, and that's
So we wanted to be able, it's like, we'll find a figure, commit to that, not, and at least we know, we'll pay at least that next year too. If there's a need to go higher, if we can, I think that's the approach that we've always taken.
But I also feel like every year we do with the insurance especially, they always like kind of downplay it and the next year they increase rates.
Yeah, that's
how it feels every year is that we do this or we're like, okay, this went down or this changed, so let's go, okay. And then the next year it's like, well, we're changing insurance, no, it's okay, we're back up, we're good. So it's just one of those, like, that conversation feels like we're going back and forth on high and lows, and I understand that to a point, but trying to figure out the language for that's just the part of the goal, and if every year we're changing the language on, especially on our insurance, just seems kind of.
well, I don't think we've ever changed the language on the thing.
Well, I mean, like we changed from, last year we wanted to say cover the lowest, and, so we set the 450 to cover the lowest, and now you're like, well, what if we have one lower than?
And the only reason I ask that is because if the expectation is we always pay 450, and then all of a sudden there's an interest that is substantially lower than 450, is the assumption of the members going to be, well, we still get 450? Because there then lays a break of understanding, well, we've always got 450. Now I have to take this plan. It's not the plan I wanted, but it's the low plan.
Are you worried about like, what do we do with that extra money?
It's not the fund.
Because it doesn't say like that you can use it for anything other than.
Right, but to someone else, that's going to be, hey, we are all understanding here, but the idea of trying to create clarity of the district always pays $450. The district always pays $450. To, okay, well, now I've got this plan. I can go have the ultimate low plan, what's the district gonna do with, they've always paid $450, what am I gonna do with that extra dollars?
Well, you have that already in the language.
Yeah, it says use
It
it.
says you can use it
HSA.
for your HSA, you can use it towards your,
Based on our current language of paying $450, but what you're talking about is to say, pay the lowest.
so if you pay the lowest single
Right.
coverage, then whatever the difference between the PPO and whatever plan they choose, that would be the difference that would still go to their HSA. Or to pay for other insurance, like my life insurance, my vision insurance, my dental insurance, that premium money goes towards that also.
But I think there's the confusion because the question then lies, the district will pay for the lowest possible plan. Doesn't say the district will pay for the lowest possible plan and then leftovers will go too. That's combined.
But
two
all
policies.
you wouldn't change that part of the language that exists. That already exists in the contract that says any additional amounts would go towards these things. You can be used towards these other things.
Right, but how would there be an additional amount if the district only provides the lowest possible one? There should be,
Because
there would be no leftover dollars.
If you put in there that we're going to provide healthcare for, at the lowest PPO or the lowest deductible, low deductible PPO, we know what that premium is every year. So right now, a single policy is $497.29.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So now, $497, if I chose the $2,500 base plan is $444, then I would have, what, $50 left.
But you just combine two policies.
You're still taking the amount of the one policy,
The only question
To the
becomes if the
difference.
one PPO does drop. That's the only
but
question.
you just have to,
So,
like we're saying, we're looking at whatever the amount of this PPO is, the low deductible PPO. So we're making sure that everybody, there's 25 employee onlys that are currently on the low deductible PPO. That those people are also covered with the policy. If they want to choose that and have nothing left over, then they can choose that. But at least they have a single policy covered for them.
But what's the policy you just mentioned that's gonna be $440?
That's the $2,500 base plan, the middle plan.
The middle plan is cheaper.
Because the low deductible is
Oh, the low
$1,500.
deductible, gotcha.
The low deductible PPO is $497. So your base, instead of $450, just becomes whatever the low deductible plan is. And if I choose one of the other plans, then the language is still in effect of I can choose how I want to use that remainder up to the low deductible amount,
correct.
right?
But if the 497 becomes 450.
It's not ever going to
Well,
do that.
that-
The low
I know,
deductible plan.
so we're arguing
So
about.
then, if
Whatever.
if the low deductible becomes $450, then we cover the $450. But we have 25 people who are still having to pay insurance out of their pocket.
The bigger issue for us is what Eric shared about the budget.
Yeah.
That's really the well.
I think too, and for me too, is this would be great if we could accommodate it. We lose control of our costs though. And secondly, it would come at the expense of everyone would be impacted because that's less money we could put into salaries in order to cover these 29 individuals to get the.
I just think it's interesting. Other schools pay for a single policy and have single policy in their contracts. Businesses who offer health insurance to their employees, a lot of career businesses, like or career positions, they offer a single policy to their employees. And they have the same fluctuations from year to year with their health insurance policies. This is what we would see. I mean, we're gonna have fluctuations just like every other business out there. Right? And I mean, most businesses, I can't think of any career, like doctors and lawyers and engineers and even Walmart employees who don't have a fully paid single policy.
So I work for a Fortune 200 company. We're the largest freight brokerage firm in America. I have very good benefits. I do not get a full single.
They give you a dollar amount?
They give me, yeah, there's a dollar amount per paycheck I have to pay. And there's a dollar amount, it goes up obviously if I have my children, if I have my family. If it's just me and my spouse, there's different, but yeah, it does not cover a full single.
That's not the norm, though.
Oh, same thing with me in past jobs I've had and family members that I have in the same scenario, because insurance costs fluctuate so much, businesses have to try to control their budgets as well.
This allows us the flexibility to say, okay, we know this is what we're gonna pay every year, and to also advocate through the committee for the best possible one, the way that's set up. My fear would be, let's say we come with a 26% increase into health insurance. Okay, that money has to come from somewhere. It is going to come out of salaries, because that's where all the new money comes from. So now that is going to affect that pot of money that we have potentially, and that would be the only concern. Whereas if we know, hey, this is what we have every year, 450, that seems to be pretty stable every year.
I think health-wise, we know that we want to make sure our employees are healthy and that they're gonna have the best plans to cover their health needs. There's a lot of districts that pay for a single policy. There's a lot of businesses that also pay for a single policy. We're just saying, we're gonna make sure that our employees are taken care of health-wise. Because when a teacher isn't in the classroom, it's detrimental to our students. And health isn't one of the reasons we want teachers to not be in the classroom. We're getting pulled out for lots of other things that we want to make sure our teachers are as healthy as we can. And covering with a policy that's going to meet their needs.
I don't want to speak for the other two, but I think that's what our board wants as well, is healthy employees. It's just the discussion comes at which policy.
But we can, yeah.
Sure.
Do you have any other items you wanted to?
I think we'll probably at that next meeting, we've already planned we'll have something for compensation as well. So I think that's all for today that we're gonna cover.
If you would, between now and the meeting,
Yeah.
I'll reach out to some other districts to see what they do with things like this. I like having it on paper. I love having it for everybody to see. I just don't know that it gets slapped right in there under the benefits. So if we want to do an addendum, and if you have changes to this, please let Amy or myself know.
Okay.
We have that.
July 11th.
It's
All right, I'm gonna say it's the 12th. I'll check here. It is July 11th.
Okay.
4:30.
That still works.
Which day?
July 11th. I guess we don't need that.
And I will, between now and
I know, I have to.
you guys, we'll run the numbers on this and we'll try and put the whole sheet together.
If you could send me or have
Sure.
Amy send us like the number.
Yeah.
Like in each position.
Yeah, probably the easiest.
We've already started a spreadsheet on that.
Would it be easy to just take our old one and just pencil in the people in those positions?
Yeah, just like the numbers.
Yeah, just to put like,
Yeah,
okay, football coach,
There's-
two, whatever, yeah, just what we're
Yeah.
doing, okay.
That would be great.
That'd be easy,
Because
then
we,
you can just
because
take
we
it
already
off.
have it, we already started figuring that
Okay.
out on a spreadsheet on the supplementals that way.
Perfect. I think that'd be good to know in lieu of if that position's been empty.
So I guess we'll just meet back up on 12th,
11.
or 11th, excuse me. I had something else on the
Okay.
12th, and that was in my mind.
But we all know what tomorrow is. It's happy birthday.
My daughter and myself.
Lots of birthday.
So we're having breakfast together.
Oh, that's good. Okay, who buys? Like, what do you do?
Well, I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. I bet I know.
Like an outside family member.
Yeah.
Behind us.
I know.
Well, thank you all, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
February 3, 1, 2 weeks.